Happy Tuesday, American Seminar students, or whatever day you happen to be watching this. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the first essay for the week, the excerpt from American Americans that I sent. This is actually an excerpt of a fuller essay. This is the only link I could find to anything else from that book, American Americans, so I could get you that document. And it provides some of a full essay. So if you feel like there are a couple of typos and a few places where it's somewhat jumpy, that's not Steinbeck's fault. Let's not judge him by that. It's just the excerpt that got put together by these people. But it does provide a lot of good information for you in here. And the first thing that I want you to notice, if you want to be a writer, there are some examples in here of what great writers do. There are some strategies that you would want to emulate in your own writing, whether you want to be a writer or whether you just want to be good at writing. One of those is Steinbeck provokes immediately. You want to lead, then provoke. Force people to think about things that make them uncomfortable. This is some not all positive things immediately about, Americans. We spend our time searching for security and we hate it when we get it. We eat too much, we drink too much, we indulge our senses too much. All of these are provoking statements. They're not outright insulting, but they make a reader want to know where they're going to go. And so this isn't some trite quote to start things off. This isn't, a silly question as a lead. This is leading by provoking, and that is great writing. Another thing good writers do is offer contrasts. And his entire essay here is contrast, is offering these paradoxes about Americans. If you can do that, if you can offer paradoxes, and we've talked about the power of foil before, well, it's not just for fiction, and it's not just for professional writers, it's for you as well. If you can hold two ideas and put them together next to each other as contrast, that's very valuable. And so you see that as a writing strategy in this text as well. You also see him offer balance. You cannot walk away from this thinking entirely positively or entirely negative about Americans. I've asked you consistently to think about and at times to write about your views on Americans. And he is able to provide both praise and criticism at the same time to provide somewhat of a balanced approach. I don't think you need to ever apologize for strong writing and strong opinions. You don't ever need to say, well, kind of believe this, kind of believe that. Steinbeck is able to say both at the same time. America is fantastic and America has these damning weaknesses about it. And so it does provide a balanced approach. Also, if you reread this, you'll see a lot of very simple sentences, simple staccato type sentences mixed in with longer flowing ones. It's these changes of paces that make for good writing. It's valuing simple sentences, short sentences where you want to say the most. And that's a skill that, I know I talk about with my AP students and one that you can see within this text as well. So in terms of writing, those are some of the things I noticed. In terms of reading the content, this is a text I would have loved to have discussed in class live. I would want to know what statements Steinbeck made about America hit home with you, which ones you think he's most accurate, and which ones have stood the test of time. These are questions I hope you've considered, and I hope you've maybe written about them in the writing prompt for Tuesday. What in here hits home for you? A couple of things for me. The opening sentence is beautiful. We are a restless, dissatisfied, searching people. I feel my own restlessness. It's almost this American birthright, right? This restlessness, this need for activity. You see it waning somewhat in society as we get lazier and lazier and more comfortable, but the restlessness is picking up once again, particularly with our current pandemic. Just a need to go and do, something to go chase, a goal. For many of you guys who are very goal-oriented people, not having a goal, not having something to work towards, or not having somebody hold your feet to the fire and point you towards a goal makes you restless. And so I think that restlessness is certainly an American quality. Along with this searching, the two go hand in hand. The idea that we're constantly searching, searching for something better, searching for a new challenge, searching for a diversion. We're rarely satisfied in the moment, and that is a positive and a negative thing. Um, Boy, another one that stands out to me. We seem to be in a state of turmoil all the time, both physically and mentally. How many people do you see around you? How many teenagers do you see around you in a constant state of turmoil? This idea of being constantly under stress or being full of anxiety. We pack our lives full of many good things and then we complain about them. And this goes down to, teenagers aren't the only ones guilty of this. I think this is all Americans, and adults are maybe more guilty. But to relate it to you, in terms of what you see from high school students constantly sign up for activities that they complain about. I've talked about the foolishness of, students talking about how wonderful follies are, and yet those same students complaining about the amount of work it is constantly. That's not the only example. You see it in sports all the time. I know that, you know, you hear students complain about having to go to practice of an activity that they signed up for. You hear them complain about having to do homework for advanced classes they took to further themselves. And so we do seem to be in a constant state of turmoil. And I don't know if it's just our obsession with complaining and it's our desire to fit in through complaining. But you look around and you see the stress and the anxiety around so many Americans, and do you wonder why are we addicted to this sense of turmoil? I like the statement, we are self-reliant and at the same time completely dependent. I think our self-reliance has become somewhat of a myth. We want to rely on ourselves, we want to be independent, but man, we constantly look to the government to bail us out about some things. We constantly believe that someone else should be doing more to give us more opportunities. That struck me as very true. Um, you also see in here, and it's not a specific quote, but I wrote down in my notes, Americans seem to be confident in skills and abilities that we do not have. We believe in myths about ourselves. We believe in the best of ourselves, often with little proof. I know it's almost a state of constant living that we can do it when we have to, even though we never choose to do it. We constantly believe that eventually we're going to be successful and that we are very smart and talented and gifted and motivated, even though for many people their records simply don't show it. And so that was an idea I had written down from this text as well. I also like at the bottom of page 2, going into page 3, we shout that we are a nation of laws, and then we proceed to break every law we can if we can get away with it. And we've talked about that before. Americans desire to justify what we do. We always have a good reason. Other people should follow the rules, and we follow them. And if we don't follow them, then we have a good reason. And particularly if we think we're not going to get caught. I had a conversation with a friend. He is out working right now in the midst of our social distancing, and some of his family have been very adamant about the precautions he needs to take and how difficult this is and how dangerous it is. And they say that and they want to demand of him certain behaviors, but they aren't following those guidelines themselves. They are just as reckless. They are willing to go and put themselves out there for a cup of coffee. And of course, they have a good reason, they think, but they don't extend that same good reason to other people. I think this is a pretty common trait amongst Americans. Um, and then I just want to go to the very end of this text. Uh, we have Steinbeck write, these dreams describe our vague yearnings towards that which we were and hope we may be, wise, just, compassionate, and noble. Those are the 4 traits: wise, just, compassionate, and noble. And he ends with a sentence, the fact that we have this dream at all is perhaps an indication of its possibility. And so something you should be asking yourself, is America these things? Are we wise, just, compassionate, and noble? Are you these things? Which of those four would describe you? Um, and also, does the fact that we do idealize those? Well, first of all, do we? Do we still in America think those are great things? Wisdom, justice, compassion, and nobility. Do we still want those? That's an important first question. But secondly, if you're saying we do, is the fact that we want them, that we idealize them, is that enough to make us a great society? Or do we need to be doing more? So I think my time is up on this video. I try to keep these down around 10 to 15. Those are some early thoughts. I hope you've read and thought carefully about this, but this should provoke you. This should make you think, where do I fit in this, and how accurate is this in terms of American society? You always, in this class, your job is to understand what's being said and then to evaluate, to add this to your own personal convictions, whether you agree with this or not. And I hope you are doing both the analysis and the evaluation as you think through some of these ideas. Thanks for listening.